Welcome to Now in the 90s, where we look at the game releases of 30 years ago, today, this week, Metal Combat, a nefarious NES port, and Bubsy. I am your host Jared, and today is May 12th, 1993. One of the most infamous platformers in all of history, not for the game, because of who it introduced. Released this week in May of 1993 for the Super NES, was Bubsy, Close Encounters of the Fur Kind. Bubsy is a side-scrolling mascot platformer. Play as Bubsy the Bobcat and escape the planet of the evil Woolies, who have stolen the world's supply of yarn balls. Run super fast, jump on enemies to defeat them, and glide around to reach the end of each stage within the time limit. That's easier said than done, as you die in a single hit. Piece together Bubsy's rocket ship to escape and defeat the final boss. Bubsy the Bobcat was developed and published by Accolade, with one goal and one goal only: be a mascot that could compete with the likes of Mario and Sonic the Hedgehog. Bubsy was the creation of developer Michael Berlin, who is known for working on heavy story games like Altered Destiny. Berlin got Sonic the Hedgehog and played it for a week straight, 14 hours a day, to analyze why Sonic was such a good game, just so that he could come up with his own concept. In the end, he helped make a game that plays very similar to Sonic the Hedgehog. Development of Bubsy began on December 6, 1991. It was originally going to be a licensed game starring Chester Cheetah of Cheetos fame, but they wanted their own character to avoid licensing fees. It was the height of the mascot craze era. Anyone and everyone was trying to make something or someone that could hang with Sonic and Mario. Arrow the Acrobat, James Pond, Titus the Fox, Rocky Road, and Awesome Possum, all made with the intent of being just as big as they were. But Bubsy was determined to succeed where all of them failed. Bubsy was designed to appeal to the same kids who loved Sonic's attitude. Bubsy always had a self-assured grin, dropping lots of quips on every magazine advertisement he could be on, and the exclamation point on his shirt was just as much his personality and a symbol. His personality was translated onto the game screen by giving him a catchphrase, which he'll often say at the beginning of stages: "What could possibly go wrong?" He'll also say things like, "Whoa, are you still playing this thing?" the further you get, which is equally a criticism and a genuine question. But how do you do that? How do you get an entire generation of kids to get hyped for your new animal mascot? How do you ensure that decades from now, they're still making Bubsy OCs and Bubsy / fanfiction? How do you make children want your game? Simple. You brute force it. Coverage and advertising for Bubsy began as early as July 1992, when GamePro magazine did a 2-page feature showcasing the super cool new character that kids are going to want the game of. Electronic Gaming Monthly gave a 2-page preview of the SNES game in their January 1993 issue, and then Bubsy was the cover of the very next issue for February 1993. At the January Winter Consumer Electronics Show at the same time, Accolade had a booth showcasing Bubsy and letting people play it, along with someone walking around in a big Bubsy mascot costume. GamePro magazine held a Bubsy-themed contest. Commercials for Bubsy aired all over the world, and they were gearing up for the premiere of the Bubsy cartoon show. An entire pilot episode of Bubsy was made for Saturday morning cartoons. It was produced by Calico Entertainment, best known for other cartoons like Denver the Last Dinosaur and Widget the World Watcher. It featured well-known voice actors such as Rob Paulson aka Yakkel Warner as Bubsy, new character Oblivia as voiced by Tress MacNeille aka Dot Warner, and villainous Sid was voiced by Jim Cummings aka every other cartoon voice ever. Bubsy would constantly look into the camera and utter his catchphrase, "What could possibly go wrong?" It was also sponsored by Taco Bell, likely resulting in the show's Southern United States aesthetic. It premiered on November 28, 1993 at 7 a.m. on a local Fox TV station only in Pittsburgh. It also had a contest attached to it, found inside Sega Genesis copies of Bubsy, where kids could watch and mail in an entry naming their 3 favorite characters from the show. They could win things like a trip to the development studio or their very own exclamation mark t-shirt. The show was not good. Even the development team was, quote, cringing their way through it. Accolade dumped so much money into advertising for Bubsy that it basically gambled the company's future on the game's success. Was it worth it? Surprisingly, Kind of. Bubsy Close Encounters of the Fur Kind released to incredibly favorable reviews. Electronic Gaming Monthly reviewed it with an average score of an 8 out of 10, claiming things like it's the year of the Bobcat and earning an Editor's Choice Gold Award. GamePro magazine also reviewed it with almost perfect scores, with the bold statement that Bubsy has more personality than Sonic himself. In Electronic Gaming Monthly's year-end awards, they gave Bubsy the award of Most Hype for a Character. These days, nobody really likes the Bubsy video game. It's seen as a lackluster attempt at trying to imitate Sonic the Hedgehog with confusing level layout and frustrating controls. It did well enough that there would be a Bubsy 2 1 year later, a third Bubsy game for PC that same year, and eventually dying with Bubsy 3D in 1996. And then coming back in 2017 with Bubsy Woolly Strike Back and Bubsy Paws on Fire in 2019. What could possibly go wrong? Gather up your C-bills for this one. Released in May 1993 for the Super NES, was Mechwarrior. Mechwarrior is a first-person giant robot shooter. Play as a variety of walking battle tanks and blast away enemies using all kinds of weaponry from lasers to missiles to machine guns. Accomplish different objectives such as destroying enemy mechs, bases, or defending key points of the map. In between levels, you can talk to numerous NPCs, get new contracts for money, and completely customize your mechs, from their weapons to their armor to their heat sinks. Mechwarrior for the SNES is not a direct port of, but is highly based on the 1989 Mechwarrior game for PCs. It has enough changes to its story and world that it's basically its own game. It utilizes the Mode 7 technology of the SNES for all of its combat. Mechwarrior itself is based on a tabletop pen and paper war game called Battletech. It was created in 1984 by the company FASA Corporation. Mechwarrior in 1989 was the second ever Battletech game ever created, but the first one to put you into the seat of the pilot. It was an astounding success, leading to many future Battletech games to use the Mechwarrior moniker or variation thereof. Mechwarrior Online, Mech Commander, Mech Assault, all Battletech video games. Interestingly, the battle mechs featured in the SNES game are all original. They do not exist in any form outside of the video game. The Nexus, Fusion, Raijin, Grand Crusader, and the Ragnarok. There are also all new planets created that don't exist within the Battletech canonical star maps. I say all this because as a kid in the 90s, I loved playing Battletech, and I'm still a Battletech nerd, although I'm not one of those inferior inner sphere scum, Clan Jade Falcon. Mechwarrior was given a decent amount of coverage leading up to its release. Battletech wasn't exactly a super well-known property, but people do love giant robots. Electronic Gaming Monthly gave a 2-page preview in their April 1993 issue, and Nintendo Power's March 1993 issue gave a 6-page preview. Nintendo Power also reviewed the game in the very same issue. They awarded it with an average score of a 3.5 out of 5, loving the graphics and Mode 7 utilization, but docking it for being confusing. The first Mechwarrior game on SNES is a bit overshadowed. Far more people know its top-down action sequel, Mechwarrior 3050, released as Battletech on Sega Genesis in the coming years. Why get yourself one bad video game when you can buy dozens of them at once? Released in May 1993 for the Sega Genesis, was Action 52. Action 52 is not one game, but a collection of 52 games. There are all kinds of different genres, from racing to shooting to platforming to arcade-style gameplay. There are far too many games to go through individually. Just know that there are a lot of them, so at least one should surely be good. Surely. Action 52 for the Genesis is indeed a port of the NES game Action 52. However, the developer behind this one, Farsight Technologies, were allowed a lot more time to playtest and quality control the Sega version. This meant that this version got way better graphics, music, and far less bugs. Now I say better graphics, but it still looks awful. I say less bugs, but it still runs like garbage. Nearly every game suffers from some sort of slowdown, awful hit detection, and were basically cobbled together. Many of the games on the Sega Action 52 were new or heavily altered from the NES version. More 2-player games were added, and the 50-second game is called Challenge, which randomly selects games to see how long you can last in a sort of hard mode endurance test. So really, it has 51 games. The most infamous of all Action 52 games is the Cheetah Men, which reappear here on the Genesis.
We come from the Action 52 game world where every game is...
Yeah, we're talking action and lots of it. We got space, dragon, adventure, even war games.
Yeah, dude, we even got rescue games, and man, they're smooth like ice.
Hey, what about you guys?
Oh yeah, we're in there too, the Cheetah Man.
Yes, but that's another story. If you want the ultimate game challenge, you have to get Action 52.
The Cheetah Men were set to be the next Ninja Turtles, with action figures and comic books and all of that. The Genesis version of Cheetah Men did not make it any better. How bad is it? Well, we could only find a single review for it in a 1994 issue from GamePro magazine. In it, they called it bland, monotonous, and a has-been. They awarded it with an average score of a 2 out of 5. It did so poorly that the planned Super Nintendo version of Action 52 was canceled. The same company also said in a Miami Herald interview that they were going to make a handheld that could play SNES and Sega Genesis games and watch TV called the Game Master. That also never came to be. It's not quite 52 more games, but for everything else this week, here's Editor Dylan.
The Nintendo console versions of Alien 3, Cubed released this week. We already covered the better Genesis version in our Little Samson episode, which is still the most expensive game we've covered at around $5,000. To this day, only a couple games could reach about half as much. The little guy has some big pockets. Operation Logic Bomb, The Ultimate Search and Destroy is way too long of a title for an SNES game. What, did the makers of Tough Enough come up with that one? Oh, they sure did. Well, now I feel bad. It's a top-down shooter akin to Smash TV, but it's made by Jalico, aka the only company Nintendo is willing to afford for their Switch Online offerings. Okay, them and Data East. I swear, their entire library will be on there before we ever get Little Samson. Sid Mead's Terraforming is one of the last releases for the TurboGrafx CD. Let me guess, it's a side-scrolling shoot-'em-up, check, with kick-ass music, check, and it's way too expensive. Yep, checks all the boxes. But the high cost is not just because it's a late release for the console, it's also the name. Sid Mead was a pioneer in neo-futuristic art and designs. Hopefully I'm saying that right. He made designs for Blade Runner, Tron, Aliens, plural, and design work and background art in Terraformers. It checks all the boxes for late TurboGrafx games, but at least it costs only a quarter of Little Samson. You win again, little buddy. I don't think you'll ever be dethroned at this rate. But we got one more shooter on the system this week, only it's a cute-em-up this time. Similar to the Cotton series we covered a little bit ago. Magical Chase has all the standard shmup fixins, but with cute designs and characters. Some of which I would imagine raised a few eyebrows from Studio Ghibli's lawyers. The developers would go on to make Final Fantasy Tactics and Ogre Battle, but enough stalling, how much is it? Oh, that's not bad actually. It's still way out of my price range, but it's about the same as Cotton, so that makes sense. Hey little guy, what's that behind your back? What did you find? Little Samson, you can't take what isn't yours. Put whatever you have back where you found it. Is that a 0? Where did you find a 0? Oh my god! Oh, I guess this means you've been replaced. I'm sorry, but you're not the most expensive game anymore. It's like a Little Samson and a half. Hell, we should probably call it Big Samson, you know? I'm sorry, it was a joke, come on, I didn't mean it. 8 games released on these 4 consoles this week in 1993. I'm sorry, come back. Come back, please!
Thank you, Dylan. Here in the Collector's Corner, Bubsy on SNES released with a staggering price of $69.95. Now, that game alone is only worth $13, and a complete one is only $31. Easily this week's biggest drop in value. Mechwarrior isn't too much better. It released costing $64.95, and now just the game cartridge is $12. But one that has the box and manual brings it right up to $100. Action 52 on the Genesis isn't nearly as infamous as its NES counterpart and is less valuable as a result. It also released costing $99.99. Now the game is only $50 and a complete one is worth $150. This week's biggest value gainer though is easily Magical Chase.
I said I was sorry, damn it!
Good God. And that's it for today. Next week, Caveman Ninjas, an Amiga series gets its 3rd in the trilogy, and careful runner, dog is watching. I'm your host Jared, and this was Now in the 90s. Thank you so much for watching Now in the 90s. I want to thank some all-new patrons this week like Spectate and Daniel. Please like the video and leave a comment down below and subscribe if you haven't already. If you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for watching this show every single Friday. I don't really get to do this a whole lot, but I love Battletech and I'm so glad that Mechwarrior came out this month just so I have an excuse to talk about my different mechs. Do you have any favorites? For me, it's easily the Timberwolf.